The drill bit ground through ancient stone, sending up clouds of dust that made Dr. Kesahai's breathing mask fog. She wiped the clear plastic with the back of her gloved hand and peered down into the hole. 3 weeks of digging on this dead world, and finally they had broken through into the chamber below. "Power down the drill," she called to her assistant. The noise stopped, leaving only the hum of their portable generators and the whisper of recycled air through their suits. Kesahai was a xenoarchaeologist, which meant she studied the ruins of dead alien races. It was lonely work, but someone had to catalog the bones of the past. The research station Kepler 442 orbited a planet that had been dead for thousands of years. No one knew who had lived here or why they had vanished. Like so many worlds scattered across the galaxy, this one held only empty cities and strange machines that no longer worked. The consortium called them precursor sites, places left behind by civilizations that had died out long before the current galactic community had learned to travel between stars. Kesahai lowered a light probe into the hole. The beam cut through the darkness below, revealing a chamber carved from solid rock. The walls were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Strange geometric patterns twisted and flowed across the stone as if they were alive. Dr. Kesahai, her assistant, a young Veltar named Genko, approached with careful steps. The Veltar were one of the newer species to join the consortium. They looked like walking lizards with 6 arms and compound eyes that could see in 12 different spectrums of light. "The energy readings are off the charts down there. Should we wait for the safety team?" "No," Kesahai said. Her own species, the Krinari, were known for their patience, but even she felt excited about this discovery. They had found dozens of precursor sites over the years, but this one felt different. "Lower the platform. I'm going down." The makeshift elevator creaked as it carried her into the ancient chamber. Her lights revealed walls covered in the twisted symbols she had seen from above. But as she looked closer, she realized they were not random patterns. They were words. A language written in stone that had survived whatever catastrophe had killed this world. Kesahai set up her translation computer and began taking pictures of the walls. The machine hummed as it tried to match the symbols to known languages in the consortium database. After an hour, it beeped with a result that made her stop breathing. "Match found," the computer said in its flat electronic voice. "Partial similarity to markings discovered on derelict vessels in Sector 7 Alpha. Confidence level, 67%. Kesahai felt her blood turn cold. Sector 7 Alpha was at the edge of the galaxy, where space was dark and empty. The only things found there were ghost ships that drifted between the stars like metal corpses, ships that belonged to no known species, ships that the consortium preferred not to think about. She focused her lights on one section of wall where the symbols seemed clearer. As the translation program worked, words began to appear on her screen, words that made no sense at first, then slowly formed a message that chilled her to the bone. "Here lies the record of the makers," the translation read. "Those who built the great roads between stars, those who lifted the children from their cradles and taught them to walk among the void, the makers who departed when the 13th hour approached, leaving behind only their servants to watch and wait." Kesahai took more pictures, moving along the wall as the computer continued its work. The message grew longer, more detailed. It spoke of beings called the Makers who had created the hyperspace lanes that connected the galaxy, who had found primitive species and helped them reach the stars, who had built the very foundations of what would become the consortium. But then, the message turned dark. The Makers carried within them the seeds of destruction. They were builders and destroyers in equal measure. When they recognized the danger they posed to their children, they chose exile over extinction. They departed for the void between galaxies, taking with them their tools of creation and their engines of war. The translation paused as the computer struggled with a complex passage. When it resumed, the words that appeared made Kesahai's hands shake. But the Makers left behind guardians. The old powers watch from the shadows, waiting for the time when the children must choose between protection and freedom. When the great devourers come from beyond the rim, when the galaxy faces its final night, the Makers will return, And the children must decide, will they welcome their parents home, or will they fight to remain orphans forever? The message continued. But Kesahai could barely focus on the words. Scattered throughout the text were descriptions that matched no species in the consortium database. Beings with 2 arms and 2 legs. Beings with forward-facing eyes and hair that grew from their heads. Beings that the galaxy's oldest myths called by a name that was whispered only in stories, told to frighten children. Humans. The computer beeped, again. New text had appeared on the screen, translated from a section of wall that seemed newer than the rest. The words were simple and clear. They are coming home. Above her, in the research station orbiting the dead world, automated systems began detecting energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Massive shapes moving through space with purpose and speed. Ships that matched no known design, heading directly for the galaxy's core. Kesahai looked up from her screen, suddenly aware that the chamber had grown very quiet. Her lights flickered, and for a moment she could have sworn she heard something, like breathing in the darkness beyond their reach, something that had been waiting a very long time for someone to read its message. She reached for her communicator to call the research station. Whatever they had found here, the consortium needed to know about it immediately. But as her finger touched the transmit button, every light in the chamber went out at once. In the darkness, she heard a sound like distant thunder, or like massive ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of known space. The old powers were stirring, and somewhere in the void between galaxies, the makers had begun their journey home. Captain Zethan stared at the empty space where the Kolar system should have been. 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and a busy mining station that supplied metals to half the galaxy. All gone. Not destroyed. Not moved. Simply gone. As if they had never existed at all. "Run the scan again," he told his navigation officer. The bridge of the consortium peacekeeping vessel Harmony's Edge was quiet, except for the soft beeping of instruments. His crew was nervous. This was the 5th system in 2 weeks that had simply vanished from their charts. "Same results, Captain," the officer reported. Her voice was tight with worry. No debris, no radiation signatures, no trace that anything was ever here. But our historical records show this system was active just 30 days ago. Zethan was a Threen, tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes that could see heat patterns. His species had joined the consortium 300 years ago, grateful for the protection and trade opportunities it offered. Now he wondered if that protection meant anything at all. "Take us to the next system on the list," he ordered, "and send a priority message to Consortium Command. Tell them we need answers." The ship jumped into hyperspace, following the lanes that connected all civilized worlds. These ancient pathways had been discovered by the early space explorers, already built and waiting to be used. No one knew who had created them. The official records said they were natural formations, but Zethan had always wondered how nature could be so perfectly organized. They emerged near Helix Prime, a farming world that fed billions across the outer rim. The planet was still there, but something was wrong. The orbital stations hung dark and silent. No traffic moved between the surface and space. No communication signals reached out to greet them. "Life signs?" Zethan asked. "Positive, his science," officer replied. "Population appears normal, but there are no active energy sources above basic biological functions. No power grids, no industrial facilities, no technology of any kind." Zethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Take us down to the surface." The landing party found a world that looked like it had been thrown back 1,000 years. The cities were intact, but every piece of advanced technology had been removed, with surgical precision. Power plants stood empty, their fusion cores gone without a trace. Computers had been stripped of their processing units. Even simple tools like communicators and medical scanners had vanished, but the people were alive and unharmed. They wandered through their powerless cities in a daze, looking up at the sky with expressions of fear and wonder. Zethan found the planetary governor sitting in his office, staring out a window at the empty sky. The man was human-looking, from one of the species that had evolved to resemble the mythical destroyer race. It was not uncommon in the galaxy. Many species had developed similar forms over millions of years. "Governor Helms," Zethan said gently, "can you tell me what happened here?" The governor turned slowly, his eyes unfocused. "They came in the night," he whispered. "Ships like nothing I've ever seen. Alive, almost. Growing things instead of metal. Things. They took everything that made noise, everything that thought, everything that remembered. Who came? What species?" "The Forgotten Ones," Helms said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "The ones who built the roads between stars. The ones who taught us to reach beyond our worlds. They came home, Captain. And they are not happy with what they found." Zethan exchanged glances with his security chief. "Governor, there are no species called the Forgotten Ones. You must be confused." Helms laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Check your oldest records, Captain. Check the stories your grandparents told to scare children. The humans are real, and they never really left." Back on the ship, Zethan contacted Dr. Kesahai on the research station. Her discovery of the ancient chamber had been classified, but he had clearance to access the preliminary reports. What he read made his blood run cold. The markings she had found were spreading. Other archaeological teams across the galaxy were reporting similar discoveries. Ancient sites that had been dormant for centuries were suddenly activating. Stone walls that had been blank were now covered in glowing symbols. And the message was always the same. The children have forgotten their purpose. The galaxy sleeps, while darkness gathers at the rim. The makers return to wake their heirs or bury their mistakes. Zethan called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. In the ship's briefing room, he displayed star charts showing the affected systems. A clear pattern was emerging. The disappearances were following the major hyperspace routes, moving steadily toward the galaxy's core. "Whatever is doing this," he told his officers, "it knows our infrastructure, it understands how our civilization works, and it is systematically removing our ability to fight back." His tactical officer, a warrior species called the Corvin, growled low in his throat. What enemy could strip entire worlds of technology without harming a single life? What force could make our best defenses simply vanish? Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The communications officer looked up from her station with wide, frightened eyes. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from everywhere at once. Every satellite, every relay station, every communication device in the system is broadcasting the same message." "Put it through," Zethan ordered. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything they had ever heard. It sounded like wind through metal, like the song of dying stars, like the whisper of time itself. And it spoke in perfect consortium standard. "Children of the galaxy," the voice said, "you have lived in safety behind walls built by hands you have forgotten. You have traveled roads paved by those you call myth. You have grown fat and lazy and weak under the protection of guardians you deny exist." The ship shuddered, though they were floating in empty space. Outside the viewports, the stars began to dim. The long exile is ending. The makers return to reclaim what was always theirs. Those who remember their place will be spared. Those who resist will be reminded why the galaxy once trembled at the mention of humanity. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in terrible silence. Zethan looked at his crew and saw his own fear reflected in their faces. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient and powerful was coming home. And it was, bringing with it technology that made their best weapons look like toys. His communications officer spoke in a shaking voice. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Hundreds of them, moving fast and heading directly for us." Zethan closed his eyes and tried to remember everything he had learned about the mythical humans. The stories said they had been builders and destroyers, protectors and conquerors, gods and monsters wrapped in flesh that looked almost familiar. The stories also said they had left the galaxy to protect it from themselves. Now they were coming back, and Zethan had the terrible feeling that 10,000 years in the dark had not made them any less dangerous. Dr. Kesahai stood before the Consortium Emergency Council, feeling very small in the vast chamber. Representatives from 100 worlds sat in floating chairs arranged in a perfect circle. Their translator devices hummed softly as dozens of different languages mixed together in urgent conversation. "You claim that these markings prove humanity was real," said Counselor Vexara, a tall insect-like being with 4 arms and glowing eyes. "But humanity is a myth. A story told to children." Kesahai activated her holographic display. The ancient symbols from the chamber floated in the air above her head, glowing with soft blue light. "The evidence is clear. These writings describe a species that matches every detail of the human legends. They built the hyperspace lanes. They uplifted primitive species. They created the foundation of our civilization." "Impossible," snapped Counselor Thane, whose species looked like walking trees with silver bark. "Our histories go back 50,000 years. There is no record of any such species." "Because the records were hidden," Kesahai replied. She touched her control pad, and new images appeared. "We have found similar chambers on 17 worlds now, all containing the same message, all warning of something called the 13th hour." The council chamber fell silent as she played the translated text. The voice of her computer read the ancient warnings in flat, emotionless tones that somehow made the words more frightening. The makers knew they were dangerous. Their own writings say they chose exile to protect the species they had helped create. Us. We are their children, and they have been watching us from the dark space between galaxies. A new voice filled the chamber, coming from everywhere at once. The lights dimmed and the floating chairs began to shake. When the voice spoke, it was not through the translation system. Every being in the room heard it in their own language, speaking directly into their minds. The child speaks truth. Panic erupted in the chamber. Security forces rushed in, but their weapons and scanners detected nothing. The voice continued, calm and patient despite the chaos. "We are the old powers. We are the servants left behind when the makers departed. For 10,000 years we have watched over the galaxy. We have guided your growth and protected you from threats you never knew existed." Counselor Vexara tried to speak, but her voice came out as a whisper. "What are you? Where are you?" "We are in the hyperspace beacons that guide your ships. We are in the ancient monuments on dead worlds. We are in the deep space stations that watch the void. We have always been here, waiting for this moment." The holographic display changed without Kesahai touching the controls. Now it showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of glowing points scattered throughout. Each point pulsed with the same rhythm as a heartbeat. "These are our nodes, our eyes and ears and voices. Through them we have shaped your development. We prevented wars that would have destroyed civilizations. We guided you away from technologies that would have consumed worlds. We have been your silent guardians." "Why?" asked Counselor Thane. "Why watch us? Why protect us?" "Because you are the children of the makers. Because they loved you enough to exile themselves rather than risk harming you. Because they knew that someday you would be needed." The map changed again. Now it showed the galaxy's edge, where space was black and empty. But as they watched, massive shapes began to appear. Ships that were larger than moons moving with terrible purpose toward their home. "The Devourers come," the old powers said. "They are a machine civilization from beyond our galaxy. They consume entire worlds, stripping them of matter and energy to fuel their endless expansion. Our calculations show they will reach the outer rim in 47 years. The shapes on the map multiplied. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became millions. A vast armada that dwarfed anything the consortium had ever imagined. Your current technology cannot stop them. Your weapons would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain. You need the makers. You need humanity. But the humans are myths, Counselor Vexara protested. Even if they were real, they have been gone for thousands of years. They were never gone. They traveled to the void between galaxies, to the cold space where no stars shine. There they changed themselves. They became something new, something powerful enough to fight the Devourers. The display showed new images now. Ships that looked organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. Vessels that seemed to bend space around them. traveling faster than the hyperspace lanes, and glimpses of the beings inside them, creatures that were human in shape, but enhanced beyond recognition. The exile changed them. They merged their flesh with technology. They expanded their minds to comprehend the fundamental forces of reality. They became living weapons, perfectly designed to wage war against cosmic threats. HFY felt her legs go weak. They are coming back. They are already here. The first scout ships entered our galaxy 3 days ago. The main fleet will arrive within the year. But there is a choice to be made. The chamber filled with tension as every representative leaned forward. Humanity could simply drive off the Devourers and leave again, but the threat will return. The Devourers will find other galaxies to consume, grow stronger, and come back, with greater numbers. The only way to end the threat permanently is to follow them home and destroy their entire civilization. "What does that mean for us?" asked Counselor Thane. "It means leaving this galaxy forever. It means joining humanity in their exile, traveling to the Devourer home galaxy and making it your new territory. It means becoming something more than you are now, just as humanity did." The old powers paused, and when they spoke again, there was something like sadness in their voice. "The Makers will offer you a choice. You can remain here, safe in your familiar worlds, while they handle the Devourer threat alone. But you will always be children, protected and limited. Or you can join them in the dark, face the dangers of a hostile universe, and become adults in the truest sense." "What happens if we refuse?" HFY asked quietly. "Then humanity will do what they have always done. They will protect their children, even if those children never know the cost. They will fight the Devourers alone, drive them back, and return to their exile. And you will continue to live in safety, never knowing how many threats they turn away in the darkness." The display went dark. The presence that had filled the chamber faded away, leaving only silence and the smell of ozone. "Counselor," Vixara was the first to speak. "How long do we have to decide?" The old powers did not answer, but on every world in the galaxy, ancient monuments began to glow. Deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through the hyperspace lanes. And in the depths of space, something vast and patient began to sing a song that sounded like coming home. The Makers were returning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first human ship appeared without warning at the edge of the Nexus system, home to the largest trade hub in the galaxy. Admiral Corinth of the Consortium Defense Fleet watched it through his command center's main screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. The vessel was massive, easily 3 times the size of his flagship, but it did not look like any ship in the database. Its hull seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like living tissue. Strange patterns of light flowed across its surface like blood through veins, and it moved through space without any visible engines, bending reality around itself as it traveled. "Sir, the ship is not responding to our communication attempts," reported his communications officer, "but it is broadcasting something on all frequencies." "Put it through," Corinth ordered. What came through the speakers was not a voice but a feeling. Images flowed directly into the minds of everyone on the bridge. They saw vast cities floating in the darkness between galaxies. They saw beings that had once been human, now enhanced with technology that merged seamlessly with their flesh. They saw weapons that could crack planets and minds that could calculate the movement of stars. Then the transmission ended, and a single message appeared on every screen in the system. "We are the children of Terra. We have returned home." Admiral Corinth tried to maintain military protocol. "Unknown vessel, you are entering consortium space without authorization. State your intentions." The response came instantly, not through radio but directly into his mind. The voice was human but changed, carrying harmonics that spoke of vast knowledge and terrible experience. "We do not ask permission to enter our own garden," the voice said. "We built these roads between stars. We planted the seeds that became your civilizations. We are home." "Impossible," Corinth muttered. "Humans are extinct, have been for thousands of years." The alien ship moved closer, and now he could see details that made his mind reel. The hull was not metal, but something organic, covered in structures that looked like eyes and mouths and hands. Things that might once have been human faces appeared in the surface, speaking silently before sinking back into the living metal. We were never extinct, the voice continued. We chose exile. We left our children to grow in safety while we adapted ourselves to survive in the void. 10,000 years have passed since we saw a star. 10,000 years of changing ourselves into something capable of protecting what we love. A second ship appeared, then a third. Each one was different, as if they had been grown rather than built. Some looked like massive sea creatures swimming through space. Others resembled insects or birds or things that had no name. All of them radiated power that made Corinth's most advanced sensors scream warnings. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "they are scanning us, but not with any energy we recognize. It feels like they are looking inside our minds." The lead ship stopped just outside weapons range. A section of its hull opened like a flower, revealing something that might have been a docking bay or might have been a mouth. A smaller craft emerged, heading straight for Corinth's ship. They want to come aboard, Corinth realized. All ships maintain defensive positions but do not fire unless fired upon. If these really are humans, we need to learn what they want. The smaller craft attached itself to his ship's hull without using any docking mechanism. Instead, it seemed to merge with the metal, creating a tunnel between the vessels. Corinth met the visitors in his main hangar, surrounded by his best security troops. What walked through the tunnel made several of his soldiers step backward in fear. They had the basic shape of humans, but that was where the similarity ended. Their skin was pale and smooth, shot through with lines of silver that pulsed with their heartbeats. Their eyes were larger than they should be, completely black except for stars that seemed to swirl in their depths. They moved with perfect grace, as if gravity was merely a suggestion they chose to follow. The leader stepped forward and spoke with a voice that sounded like music made from mathematics. "Greetings, Admiral. I am Designate 7 of the Homecoming Fleet. We are what humanity became when we learned to live in the spaces between spaces." Corinth found his voice. "What do you want?" "To save our children," 7 replied. "The Devourers have entered this galaxy. Even now they consume the outer rim worlds. Your defenses cannot stop them. Your weapons cannot harm them. You need us." "And what do you want in return?" 7 tilted its head, and for a moment Corinth saw something almost sad in those star-filled eyes. "We want you to choose. To decide whether you will remain children forever or grow into something greater. What does that mean?" Instead of answering, 7 gestured and the air around them shimmered. Suddenly they were standing in space, looking down at a planet that was being consumed by machines. Vast mechanical structures stripped away the world's crust layer by layer, feeding the raw matter into processing plants that stretched across continents. The planet's inhabitants had fled, but there was nowhere to run. The machines were everywhere. "This is what the Devourers do," 7 explained. "They consume entire galaxies, turning everything into more machines. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped by conventional means. They are the end of all organic life." The vision changed. Now they saw human ships engaging the machines in battle. But these were not the graceful living vessels Corinth had seen. These were weapons of war, reshaping reality itself as they fought. Space folded and twisted around them. Time moved differently in their presence. The laws of physics bent to their will. "This is what we became to fight them," 7 continued. "We merged our flesh with quantum technology. We expanded our minds to comprehend dimensional mathematics. We became living gods capable of waging war across multiple realities at once." The vision faded, and they were back in the hangar. Corinth's soldiers were staring at 7 with mixtures of awe and terror. "The choice is simple," 7 said. "You can remain as you are, safe but limited, while we handle the threat alone. Or you can join us. Let us change you as we changed ourselves. Become something beyond your current understanding. And if we refuse, then we will love you and protect you as we always have. But you will never truly grow up. You will never become what you could be. You will remain our children forever." Dr. Kesai pushed through the crowd of soldiers. She had been studying the ancient records trying to understand the true history of her galaxy. Now she faced one of the beings those records had described. The old powers said there was a choice, she said. Join you in leaving this galaxy or stay behind. Seven nodded. The Devourers will return. This is only the first wave. To truly end the threat, we must follow them home and destroy their source. That means leaving this galaxy forever and making a new home in their territory. What would happen to us? Would we still be ourselves? Seven's expression became almost gentle. You would become more than yourselves, as we did. It is not death, but transformation, not loss but growth. The hangar fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Everyone waited for Admiral Corinth to respond. The weight of speaking for his entire species pressed down on him like a mountain. How long do we have to decide? He asked finally. The main Devourer fleet will arrive in 6 months, Seven replied. We will defend you regardless of your choice. But if you wish to join us, the transformation must begin soon, and it must be voluntary. We will not force evolution on those who do not desire it. Seven turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Admiral. This choice is not just for your species. Every civilization in the galaxy must decide for itself. Some will choose growth, others will choose safety. Both paths have value. As the human delegation departed, Corinth watched their ship merge back into the larger vessel. Around the galaxy, similar encounters were taking place. Humanity had returned, offering a choice that would define the future of all galactic civilization. Stay children forever, safe but limited, or grow up and face the universe as equals to the beings who had once been their creators. The decision would determine not just the fate of the galaxy, but the very nature of what it meant to be alive in a cosmos full of wonders and terrors beyond imagination. The Devourers arrived exactly when the old powers had predicted. Dr. Kesahai watched from the observation deck of Consortium Command as the first wave of machine ships emerged from hyperspace at the galaxy's edge. Even at this distance, their sensors could detect the massive energy signatures of vessels larger than planets. 3 months had passed since humanity's return, and the galaxy was divided. Some species had chosen transformation, allowing human biotechnology to enhance their bodies and minds. Others had refused, preferring to remain as they were. The debates had torn apart governments and split families. Even now, as the enemy approached, people were still arguing about the choice. Kesahai had made her decision weeks ago. Silver lines now ran beneath her skin, connecting her mind to quantum processing networks. Her enhanced senses could perceive dimensions of reality that her old brain could never have understood. She was still herself, but more. It felt like waking up from a dream she had not known she was having. The first battle begins, said Designate 7, appearing beside her without making a sound. The transformed human moved like liquid light, present one moment and somewhere else the next. Your people have chosen their paths. Now we see the consequences. Through the observation window, space erupted in violence. The Devourer ships were nightmares made real, geometric horrors covered in grinding machinery. They moved through space like living things, consuming asteroids and dead planets to fuel their weapons. Their energy beams could slice through moons. Their construction ships could build new vessels from the wreckage of destroyed worlds. But humanity met them with power that defied understanding. The human fleet did not look like it was fighting a battle. It looked like it was conducting a symphony. Ships moved in perfect harmony, their organic hulls shifting and changing as they adapted to each new threat. When Devourer weapons struck them, the energy was absorbed and redirected. When machine ships tried to ram them, the human vessels simply flowed around the impact like water. How are they doing that? Kesahai breathed. They are not fighting in 3 dimensions, Seven explained. The ships exist partially in hyperspace, partially in normal space, and partially in dimensions that have no names. The Devourers can only attack what they can perceive, and they can only perceive a fraction of what is actually there. One human ship, no larger than a consortium cruiser, approached a Devourer vessel the size of a small moon. The machine ship fired everything it had, weapons that could vaporize continents. The energy beams passed harmlessly through the human ship as if it were made of shadows. Then the human vessel touched the Devourer's hull, and the massive machine simply dissolved. Its matter was converted to pure energy and absorbed by the smaller ship. "Your technology is impossible," HFY said. "No," Seven replied. "It is just very advanced. 10,000 years of survival in the void taught us things that no species living in normal space could learn. We had to become impossible to survive." The impossible. The battle continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Devourers had come expecting to face primitive civilizations with simple weapons. Instead, they found an enemy that operated by entirely different rules. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will. They struck from multiple dimensions simultaneously. They turned the Devourer's own weapons against them. When the first wave was finally destroyed, Seven turned to address the assembled representatives of the galactic species. "This was only the beginning," the enhanced human said. "The main Devourer force is still approaching. Millions of ships carrying weapons that could crack your stars. They will not underestimate us again." Admiral Corinth, now enhanced like HFY but still recognizable, stepped forward. "What do you need from us?" "A final decision. The time for debate has ended. Those who wish to join us in the Great Exodus must choose now. Those who wish to remain must be prepared for what comes next." Seven gestured, and a holographic map appeared showing the galaxy and the space beyond. Red markers indicated the approaching Devourer fleet, while blue markers showed human positions. "We will follow the enemy back to their home galaxy. There, we will end their civilization permanently. But this means leaving this galaxy forever. The hyperspace lanes will be sealed behind us to prevent the Devourers from following. Those who stay will be safe, but they will also be alone." "And those who come with you?" asked Counselor Vexara. She had chosen enhancement, and her insect features now sparkled with embedded circuitry. "We'll become citizens of a new kind of civilization, one that spans multiple galaxies, one that faces the universe as explorers and protectors rather than hiding in safe corners." The choice was presented to every world, every species, every individual. Ships gathered at designated assembly points. Families said goodbye. Some chose adventure, others chose safety. Both choices were honored. HFY found herself aboard a human vessel, watching as half the galaxy's population prepared for the greatest journey in history. The ships that would make the trip were modified with human biotechnology, capable of surviving in the hostile environment between galaxies. The remaining population would stay behind, protected by automated defense systems and the promise that the threat would never return. They would rebuild, grow, and perhaps someday reach the stars again in their own way. "Are you ready?" Seven asked, as the final preparations began. HFY looked back at her home galaxy, knowing she would never see it again. Then she looked forward, toward the unknown darkness that lay beyond. "Yes," she said. "I am ready to grow up." The Exodus began with a song that resonated across multiple dimensions. Thousands of ships, carrying billions of beings, moved together toward the edge of known space. Behind them, the galaxy they were leaving sparkled with the lights of those who had chosen to remain. The 13th hour had come at last. As they entered the void between galaxies, HFY felt her enhanced senses expand even further. She could perceive the cosmic web that connected all things, the hidden structures that shaped reality itself. This was what humanity had discovered in their long exile. This was what they offered to their children. Not just protection, but the chance to become something greater. Not just safety, but the opportunity to explore wonders beyond imagination. The journey to the Devourer home galaxy would take centuries, even with human technology. But time moved differently for enhanced beings. They would arrive not as refugees, but as conquerors, ready to claim a new home and end an ancient threat. Behind them, the galaxy they had left continued to spin through space, watched over by the old powers and protected by defenses beyond the understanding of any enemy. Those who had stayed would live good lives, safe and content. But those who had left would live lives of infinite possibility. The stars grew distant, then vanished entirely. In the darkness between galaxies, surrounded by beings who had once been human and others who had chosen to become something new, HFY smiled. The children of the galaxy had finally chosen to leave home, and the universe would never be the same.